Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the show. My name is Diana Nguyen, and I am the host and creator of the SnortCast. We've been going live twice a week on the SnortCast. I just love live TV. The SnortCast. We've got international. We've got Williamsburg. We've got Ohio, Baltimore, Toronto. We've got Tonga. What? I think people just heard sex in the second point, so we'll flow from
I am not ready to talk about it. It is. I just don't. Oh my God.
What the hell happened to your arm?
It's just a fashion accessory.
That was fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining the SnortCast, something that I deeply love doing, which is laughing. And I hope to see you on our show every week, keeping it snorting real. Howdy, 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 and welcome to the SnortCast. My name is Diana Nguyen. You know who I am. I've been coming onto your screens every Monday and Friday for this second edition of the SnortCast. It's called the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. It is starting really, really soon, and I am not freaking out at all. But before we start talking about comedy, I would like to know where you are watching this show from. This show is for you snorters, and if you can tell us where you are watching from and where you're snorting from, we would love to hear from you. This show was created last year during lockdown. Comedians couldn't leave their homes, so the best way to get them entertained was to get them on the show. And I'm really proud of where the show's gone and the conversations we've had about comedy and process of comedy, and especially on LinkedIn here. Everyone wants to be funny when they do a presentation. So please let us know where you're watching from. Put a snort, put your city, and would love to hear from you. And if you are following us, you will find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Use the hashtag #TheSnortCast. And thank you so much to our Patreon community for supporting the show, supporting the joyful. And if you would like to be a Patreon supporter, all you have to do is click on the link on the bottom there. I am going fast and rapid because it is a crazy time. This week, these comedians I've been interviewing will be performing over the 4 weeks, will be performing their show that they've put in the oven for 12 months, and it's pretty overcooked, mine, and I can't wait to let it all out. And I'm really excited to bring my next guest on the SnortCast to talk about his show. And I had him on the SnortCast comedy lineup in St Kilda. I think it was in January, and what a cracker. Oh my God, I couldn't stop laughing. It was hard laughing because it was just so brutal, brutally true. And that's the joy of comedy, is telling it as it is. So let us know where you're watching from, and I'm going to introduce our next guest. So our next guest is comedian writer Sami Shah, has been profiled in New York Times, ABC's Australian Story, and appeared on BBC Radio 4, BBC Asian Network, TEDx. He did a TEDx called The Unseen Laugh on the project, and also seen at the Soho Theatre in London. Sami wrote and performed a 2-part series for BBC Radio 4, A Beginner's Guide to Pakistan, and appeared as a panelist with QI with Stephen Fry. His autobiography, he's a writer too. Let's just keep adding. It's amazing. It's amazing how versatile and creative entrepreneurs we are. Has a book called MIGRANT, and has been nominated for the New South Wales Premier's Library Award and the Russell Prize for Humour Writing. And also, he has a podcast. And before I bring him on, let's check out what this person does. All right, well, bear with me because I wish I had a tech person. And here we go. Let's watch.
And then I met someone else and I got married again. I did. Thank you. I did. I got married 3 months ago. It was amazing. It was a fantastic wedding. It was a destination wedding. And that's a great way, by the way. If you've got, because I'm from Pakistan, right? And when my wife and my fiance at the time said, hey, let's do the guest list for the wedding, I was like, hey, how many people are you inviting? And she said 40 people. I was like, 40 people? 40? Are you 40 people? Where are the other 860 people going to go? Like what? Because I'm from Pakistan. Like my first wedding had 900 guests in it, right? Like that's 40 people. Does no one love you? What are you doing? But then we realized we
welcoming
can't
our guest,
afford
Sami
960 people in Australia.
Shah.
Hello.
Look, I totally understand that. If you say that to a Vietnamese family, you had 40 guests, they'll be like, "You're disowned. Like you don't get it."
No, it wasn't even my first, this is my second marriage, my second wedding. So my first wedding was in Pakistan in 2005 and 2004. And, that was a Pakistani wedding with a Pakistani bride and a Pakistani groom. And we had 800 people that time. And that's the standard. It wasn't considered crazy or anything like that. That's just what you do. There's trucks of food and everyone on earth is there. And then years and years later, after that marriage didn't work out, we were married for 12 years. And then I met someone else years after that and got married again. And this person was white. And so we had a Western style wedding, and that is much smaller. And I'll be honest, a little bit more boring.
And we'll talk more about that second wedding because that's inspiration for something else. As for someone who doesn't know you, and I've read your bio, what are 3 things that I haven't said in your bio that people don't know about you?
3 things, and well, I'm a dad. That's probably the most important thing about me. I have an 11-year-old daughter who is the most important thing in my life, and I probably shouldn't call her thing, a person in my life. It's probably more accurate, but yeah, there's that. I collect watches. That's my hobby. Every midlife crisis should have a hobby. And mine has been watch collecting, so that's what I kind of get into a lot. And it's one way, if you really want to get me talking endlessly, just ask me about watches. And what's the third thing? I don't know. I like cooking a lot. I'm very, very, very heavily into cooking. Everything from Italian food to Pakistani food, most cuisines. I spend most of my time in the kitchen when I'm not writing. Yeah.
Great, love it. I'll just do a little tech. There is a bit of crackling from your end, so I'm wondering if it's coming from your headpiece.
I can take off the headphones and we can try it without them. That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, hang on. Yeah.
It is live TV. My audience know anything can happen. Oh, so much better.
Better? All right, excellent, fantastic. Happy to help.
Now my next question is, if you had to write a memoir, well, I feel like you've already done. You wrote I, Migrant.
Well,
but
yeah, I kind of did that.
If you had to write a second book.
You did no research for these questions at all.
No, this is just generic. We'd go deep later. But if you had a second book, what would be the title of the book? And why was your first book called I, Migrant?
I'll start the second part of that question first. The first book was called I, Migrant because it was about because they asked me to write the book when I moved to Australia, and it was a book about my story about migrating to Australia, why I did that. And I had just basically decided that I really wanted to. I didn't like the term immigrant because for the book title, I mean, I like the term, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just felt like I needed something a little bit cleverer than that. And so I, Migrant was the kind of solution for that. But, some people have asked, is it from I, Claudius? Other people have asked, is it from I, Robot? And all those answers are correct. The
iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. And then the one that I really, the one that I would probably title the next one. Oh, wow. I think it'll probably be called Punching Down. Because I kind of I did a comedy show a few years ago called Punching Down, and it was like a recap of everything that's been happening in my life up to that point. And it's that phrase in comedy that comedy is only about punching down. And I really like the truth to that and how that kind of is such an important tenet in comedy that I think that would be the next title, but I'm never doing it. I'm never writing another autobiography. I'm never I like telling my story in stand-up and on stage, and anything I write now has to be fiction.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll watch this space, everyone, because never always changes after COVID. I'm just saying.
That's very true.
And a question I want to ask is, what was your first memory of comedy in your life and you thought, hang on, I can do this? Was it like as a child or, when did that come in?
There's two different moments. One is the first time I became aware of comedy, which is there's a Pakistani comedian named Moin Akhtar, who is a legend in Pakistani comedy. He died many years ago, and he used to do sketch comedy and all of those things. And I was at a family wedding, and a giant 800 people wedding. And Moin Akhtar was the comedian who'd been booked to perform at the wedding. And now, as a comedian professionally, I know wedding gigs are a nightmare and they're a horrific thing to put a comedian through. But at the time, obviously, I didn't know any of those things. But he went there and he did a great show. And I remember the whole audience was laughing and everything. And I was right in the front row looking up at him. And the entire time I was just thinking, like, wow, this is unbelievable. Like, to have this kind of control over a crowd and to kind of influence their emotions in this way. I'm being 6 or 7 years old and just having it blow my mind. And I remember, so that was a distinct memory. And then many years after that, when I was in Pakistan, I just returned from America. I did college in America. Pakistan, a bunch of my friends started the first improv comedy troupe in Pakistan. And I'd seen improv comedy before, Whose Line Is It Anyway, stuff like that, but I didn't know it could be done by people like us. I thought you have to be in America to do it. And I went to the first improv comedy performance that my friends put up, and I was blown away. And I was like, this is amazing. It's so funny. It's so clever. I want to be a part of this. And so, I went to an audition the very next day, and I ended up joining the group right away. And I did improv comedy for 2 years after that before kind of transitioning into stand-up myself. Yeah.
Wow. And so it was the improv acting that transformed you into stand-up.
Kind of. I think partly I'd always loved stand-up as an art form. Like, even when I was a student in university and stuff, I used to download stand-up comedy albums, and I used to buy CDs and all those things. While I was doing improv comedy, I enjoyed improv. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I still think it's a great exercise. But the thing that I loved, which I wanted to do, which is just, get my point of view across, talk about the things that I'm observing, is not possible in improv. It's a very different art form. It doesn't lend itself to that kind of personal honesty. And so that's why I kind of decided to transition to stand-up and try it myself. And I did my first stand-up comedy show in 2005 in Pakistan.
Wow. And how's the scene over there? I don't know many Pakistani comedians, but I know some Indian comedians.
Yeah. So India's got an amazing scene now. India's got a fantastic scene. Pakistan, when we started, when I was the first English language comedian, and it was myself and one or two other guys, and there wasn't open mics or any of those things. Like, my first show was an hour-long show because I had no way to practice it, rehearse it. I just did an hour. And I left like 7 years after that. And for those 7 years, it was me and maybe another guy, and we were just doing hour-long shows every year. The same way you do at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, but without the luxury of an open mic in which to trial things. So that was a weird thing. But now I just recently spoke to a comedian in Pakistan, and he said there's a comedy scene, there's comedy clubs, not comedy clubs, but like comedy nights at cafes, and there's a few open mics that are popping up and stuff like that. So apparently it's happening. But the Indian scene is amazing. They've got some fantastic comedians there. Karunish Talwar is an Indian comedian that I absolutely think he's one of the best in the world right now. Aditi Mittal, same with her.
Yeah, because at Melbourne Comedy Festival, they tend to bring them out for like a special gala.
And I'm gonna miss that because I used to get to hang out with them and just talk in Urdu and Hindi with a bunch of comedians, and it was always fun. Kind of catching up with a bunch of them, but it's I'm gonna miss that this year because they're not flying over this year.
No, I used to hang out with them because I was like, this is the closest to Asian I'll get. Like,
There's a few Asian comics though now, aren't there? More in Sydney, I think, and in Perth maybe than here.
Yeah, there's more. There was definitely more in Sydney because I did a performance in Sydney. It was like the Asians' best, and there was more in Sydney than Melbourne. If you're joining us, please let us know who is your favorite comedian. And you talked about your favorite comedians in Pakistan, but with you know, being in the industry and doing comedy now, who inspires your comedy to, you know, keep nutting out and getting the juices? Like, what inspires you to keep going?
I would say like from the Australian cohort, Laura Davis. She just moved to New Zealand. She isn't here anymore. But Laura, she's one of the first people to kind of give me a break when we were in Perth at the same time. So I've always been grateful to her for that. But she's a person who, you know, I would listen to her comedy and marvel at the structure, the writing, the honesty, the poetry of it all. She's unbelievable. Other than that, who else? I don't know. There's so many people you perform with who are unbelievable and so talented and so funny. And because you perform with them time and time again, you take them for granted almost. You know, in the Melbourne scene, I'd say, let's see. I mean, Diluk Jayasena, Ivana Ristigeta. Those are two obvious ones. There will be Anne Edmonds, I think, is at another level from the rest of us. You know, every time I watch Anne Edmonds, I marvel at her work. Same thing with her. Nina Oyama, Becky Lucas, Mike Goldstein. There's so many. There's so many. And then in America, it's the same thing where there's, you know, there's always new comedians that blow your mind. Like I saw a Netflix special recently. I'm just pulling up the name.
Yes.
And it just completely, I'd never heard of this comedian before. I just put on the special out of curiosity and I was laughing wall to wall. And it'd been ages since a new talent had kind of blown my mind that way. It was Sam J. Her special is called 3 in the Morning and it is phenomenal. So she's there. And then, of course, Brian Regan, who's probably one of the greatest comedians alive right now. Gary Gulman, you know, there's Patton Oswalt, Mark Maron, all the classics as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, lots of classics in that list there. And one of our audiences, Karen Lee from Melbourne, has said Trevor Noah is fun.
Trevor Noah's got, like, his stand-up. It's one of the crazy things is that he's been able to maintain a fantastic stand-up career while doing The Daily Show because Jon Stewart kind of gave up stand-up and just did The Daily Show for years. But Trevor Noah still does stand-up and does amazing stand-up. His facility for accents alone is brilliant. The stuff I love about Trevor Noah isn't his more recent stuff, though, because now it's more about American politics and everything. If you go on YouTube, you can find stuff that he was doing in South Africa when he was young, talking about South African politics and particular things about South African culture. And I've never been to South Africa, but you can learn so much just from listening to him talk about protest marches and the racial differences and the cultural difference between South Africa and neighboring countries. And I just love that stuff.
Yeah. I've heard his book is quite special too. And I heard that instead of reading it, I need to listen to him read it to me.
Absolutely. I'm a big audiobook fan. So whenever the author who reads well does read it themselves, it's always a treat.
Is your book Audible?
One of them is. It's the Islamic Republic of Australia, which is a book I wrote about religion in Australia and stuff. And it was so that one I read myself. Yeah.
Okay, great, beautiful. And as you know, this is part of a Melbourne International Comedy Festival special season because you've got a show that starts in 2 weeks.
That's right.
Oh no,
it starts on Wednesday. It runs for 2 weeks.
That's it. It's for 2 weeks, but starts this week. It's called Kak.
Mm-hmm.
What's the inspiration for that title? And what's the goods?
The word "kak," if you don't know, is short for cuckold, and a cuckold is a man whose wife has cheated on him, who's had an affair, basically. And it's a medieval English word, and it's a very old word. And so it just that's basically what happened. I got married September 2019. You played a clip at the start of the show, which was recorded 3 months after I'd gotten married, which was probably the last time I smiled or laughed for a very long time, because that's around the time that I discovered that I was being cuckolded, as they say in the infidelity business. And so it kind of all fell apart just before lockdown started. So in the days, probably a week before lockdown is when all of it kind of came to a head. And so I spent 7 months with a broken heart and trying to figure out what went wrong. And and put myself back together again. And I figured, I've put in all this work and I've made it through lockdown with, and healed myself. I might as well get something out of it. So I wrote an hour comedy show. And so
That's
now
it.
I've got a comedy show about the process of being cheated on.
It's pure. It was pure gold when you performed at my lineup show because it was the first time I'd heard it, and the audience were like, "What? What?"
It's
What?
funny because there's been a few. I used to do breakfast radio on ABC Melbourne, and when I got married, it was a part of we talked about it on ABC Radio. I talked about the wedding and the getting, the run up to the wedding, and then returning from the wedding and all that stuff. And so there's been a few audience members who used to listen to the radio show who've come to see me at comedy gigs, and when that kind of penny drops, they've just been like, "What?" It's just hits. But I also like to think I've made it funny. It's not a. I'm not Hannah Gatsby. I can't pull off on the net. I can't talk about trauma and make it so impactful. All I can do is just make it funny. So I think I've done that. Yeah.
You definitely have. And I just want to ask, so we had COVID 2020. So was this show meant to be on last year, or has been a new thought process?
So the show that I was going to do 2020 in the Melbourne Comedy Festival was called Nuptials, and that was a show about the process of getting married. And the artwork for the show featured me in a tuxedo, taken from the wedding photographs in the moment when my wife said "I do." The cameraman snapped this picture of me just having this beautiful emotional reaction in my tuxedo, and that was the picture in the background. It just said "Nuptials" over it in big text. And so this year I just recycled the whole image, and it's the same picture, and I just changed the wording. Instead of "nuptials," now it says "cock."
Love it. But it's a beautiful poster.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. If nothing else, I don't know if the show is funny yet or not, but the poster is damn good.
Yeah, the poster's damn good. So if someone who does a lot of marketing, when you showed you your poster, I was like, gold. It's just gold and recyclable. It's very sustainable. So good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of our audiences, especially on LinkedIn, who are watching, are TED Talk freaks. Majority of people here on LinkedIn, they want in their bucket. I did TED Talk last year before COVID hit. It's about being joyful and happy and joyful. Your TED Talk is called The Unseen Laugh.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired the unseen laugh? What?
Okay, look, there's two answers. One is the truth and the other one is the PR spin, right? So I'll give you the PR spin first. The PR spin is that I was inspired by the idea that comedy connects people, and when you do talk about things using comedy, hard things like, when I first came to Australia, I spoke about refugee rights, and I spoke about the issues, the way refugees were being treated, and asylum seekers were being treated. But I used comedy to do that, and it changed people's hearts and minds. I find, people who were anti-refugee, anti-asylum seeker, who kind of bought into the government's propaganda, would then listen to the show and come away and contact me afterwards and say, "I never thought of it that way. Thank you so much for reframing it." And I realized comedy does that. Comedy creates a human connection and can, you can actually impart really important information using the vehicle of stand-up. So that's where the idea came from for the Unseen Laugh. And then the non-PR answer is they asked me to do a TED Talk. I'm not going to say no. I know every TED Talk has that nonsense format of da-da-da-da, 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 and then everyone goes like this at the end. And it's about 12 minutes of the lightest, fluffiest, most feel-good nonsense pap content in the world. And no TED Talk has ever actually changed anything, made a difference to anything or anyone. And so, I just figured if I get the rhythms right, it'll last. And I think I did all right.
Yeah, you did all right. I had a quick browse before we jumped on. I was like, yeah, you've definitely got a lot of things under your belt. You got a toolkit under there.
Yeah. All it is just get the rhythms right. Any idiot can do a TED Talk as long as you're just willing to go da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Well, yeah, there's gotta be a story that strings it all through, like the little journey.
It's the same setup. If you look at the structure of a TED Talk, a good TED Talk is the same structure of a good stand-up bit. There's the setup,
there's the callback, there's the punchline, and then there's the callback. And people love a callback. Oh, they lose their minds applauding to a callback. But yeah, I'm very cynical about TED Talks and those inspirational talks and such. But I'm also very cynical about LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn, but everyone in my head, everyone on LinkedIn is either a marketing executive, a social media manager, or a banker. So yeah.
Well, welcome to LinkedIn. Our
Thank
community is watching. I guess my next question to you is, and because you do a lot of work, you know, we talk about diversity in comedy.
Mm.
The reason why I started the SnortCast was SnortCast lineup show was to create a space where you could have more than 2 Asian females or to have 2 non-binary performers on the one lineup.
Right.
Has it been for you? Because you said you did stand up in 2005, or that was improv comedy. Like, have you seen a progress? And are we still stuck? Are we on this kind of change? But is it real change?
For the first 7 years, I was in Pakistan, so the lineup was very diverse because it was full of Pakistanis.
Yes.
And you'll be hard pressed to find an all Pakistani lineup in Australia, but that I understand. When I came here, I was originally in Perth in WA, and diversity wasn't a thing on my radar, and it was just, you know, get a comedy, you know, become good at comedy. That's it. So I went to comedy rooms and I performed in comedy rooms. There was a moment I remember a few years in when I looked around and I was like, oh, I'm the only non-white person in the room. And you have that kind of realization after a while. Part of it is it's a poison chalice because there's a lot of new comedians who are from, you know, non-white background, people of color or something. And because of the push for diversity, sometimes they get pushed forward into the limelight too soon. You know, they'll be given a headline show, they'll be given a gala spot or something before they're ready to handle that. And, you know, before they've got a full hour that's funny, things like that. So I feel like that's always something to be cautious of. You know, if you're a comedian, work on being funny first, and then you find your space in a lineup. And that's true for any, you know, female comedian, any comedian. The funniest comedians, when you go to the best lineups, you know, they're the ones where everyone's funny, and you'll afterwards, if it's a well curated lineup, you'll go, oh yeah, one was a woman, one was a man, one was a transgender person, one was a brown guy, an Asian, you know, all of those things. But while you're listening, you don't notice because it's funny. That's an important part of it. But also, I think what happens is the diversity in stand-up comedy has improved a lot significantly. As more people get into comedy, there are more people you can put on lineups, and that's been wonderful. But I think for me, the thing that I'm always worried about is that the change never makes it beyond a certain level. So, you know, you'll have amazing comedians from different diverse backgrounds. Okay, like I'll give you an example. Nazeem Hussain. Nazeem Hussain is a fantastic comedian. He's been on Australian television for ages. He's so funny. He's so charismatic. Where's his TV show? Where's the TV show with Nazeem Hussain on the front of it, as opposed to him being the guest on other people's TV shows? You know, where's Dilruk's TV show? Where are those?
Where's your TV show?
I do radio. I don't like TV. I'm fine not getting on TV shows. You know, I have no real love for television as a medium, particularly Australian television, which I think is some of the worst in the world. But I will say that in terms of the actual, you know, change, the comedy lineups will become diverse. But the next level of then moving those comedians into those big spots, those TV spots, those, you know, head writer spots, that's not happening. So you'll still end up with like an idiot like Josh Thomas, for example, on panel discussion saying, "Oh, I don't know any people of color who have got the skill level to be in a writer's room." And it's like, dude, you're a stand-up comedian who only got successful because of dumb luck. Because I've seen your act, and your show's not that good either. But somehow you're judging other people's writing skills. Meanwhile, I know many people of color who write for writers' rooms all year round, who are phenomenal writers, and never get asked. So there is this huge thing where, you know, you're not going to see people move up to the next level because the gatekeepers there are still very, very basically racist. And there's no other way to kind of describe it. You can use other words, but they are openly quite racist.
Yeah. and I was on Josh Thomas's show, Please Like Me, and I was
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bag the show out.
Oh no.
I saw one episode. I thought it was unfunny, just like everything Josh Thomas has ever done. So I moved on.
I did not apologize. I only had 2 lines, and I was offering fur at a fur restaurant. So
there we go. Yeah,
that was my moment of light and shining. But yeah, I guess I'm also curious about diversity in the audience as well. Because majority of the faces that sit in the audience are white. Do you think there'll be a change of that wave of second, third generation Australian migrant who will embrace comedy like the white community or the millennial community?
I hope so. I do. You're right. I'm not seeing enough of it. So for example, like not many Pakistanis and Indians come out to watch me do stand-up comedy. Most of my audience that comes regularly and buys tickets, and I'm very appreciative of them, are white Australians, because they are people who go to comedy clubs regularly and watch comedy regularly. I think stand-up comedy hasn't spoken to people of color because it's kind of lacked in that representation on TV for so long. Now that it's changing, it will. They'll feel more comfortable going to a comedy club because they'll go. Yes. There's that thing of it used to be, up until very recently, if you were the one Asian in the audience, the one Pakistani or Indian in the audience, chances are the comedian is going to single you out and make fun of you and do a papadum joke or do a Tiananmen Square joke or something like that. And it would just make you go, well, I guess I'm never going to go watch comedy anymore, because all that's being done is I'm being made fun of for being who I am. But that's, I think, changing a lot. Comedians don't do that. Good comedians definitely don't do that. But no, I've never been in a comedy room in the last few years that would tolerate something like that. And you, as a result, are seeing more people of color kind of coming out to those rooms. It's going to take a while. I'm not in any hurry to see that change, because I feel we need to get good as well. So when they do come to see us perform, they go, wow, that was worth it, because that guy who looks like me was funnier than everyone else in the lineup. That would be amazing.
You've been like on a storm of doing spots all around Melbourne. Like, it's blown up. Our lockdown was lifted, and you've been on like 2-3 gigs a week. I feel like I see your face on every. Do you prefer doing the spots, or do you prefer spending that full hour? Because I've seen your show at Melbourne Town Hall a couple of years ago. Do you prefer the spots or the full show where you get to do your narrate a story?
Look, the full show is a completely different thing. It's your time, it's your space. You can do it your way, and it's a thing of luxury, and it's an indulgence. But year round, as a working comedian, it's the spots. Spots feed you. Spots, build your comedy skills up. You become a real proper comedian by doing spots, and I love them. I love doing 7 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, and you go up there, and it's a lineup, so you get to hang out with other comedians. You're with friends. You're with the only other people in the world who understand your own kind of particular kind of brain damage, because only comedians get other comedians. And you catch up and you talk nonsense, and then you get up on stage, and it's pure adrenaline, and then it finishes, and afterwards you all get drinks, and there's a social aspect to it as well. It's my favorite thing on earth is doing spots, and Melbourne having this weird comedy boom right after lockdown ended, where there's so much comedy now. There's so many great rooms now. Has been wonderful, and I've really enjoyed kind of going head, just diving headlong into it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit of an opposite person. I just find, like, if I had to make a metaphor of this lineup to the full show, it's like really quick sex for me for the lineups. And then, like, the full 50 minutes or hour is the slow, intimate, one-on-one eye contact. Yeah, and so I'm just getting used to it, because I haven't done lineups like forever until December. Yeah, so it's been like, that's been like really interesting for me, is how, as a comedian, the energy that I give, because I feel like with spots you kind of like trying to get them in, and
I think there's a few different ways. The thing I like about spots is it's how you try out new material, for starters. You think of something new. I thought of a new bit today, and tomorrow I'm doing a spot somewhere. So tomorrow I'll go and try it out on stage.
Yes.
And if it works, it'll be in the comedy festival show. But if it doesn't work, it'll only ever exist in that one spot. And that's fine. I like that. But to go with your metaphor, yes, spots are like quickies. Some of them can last a lot longer than others. 15-minute spot is still is a great quickie. Yeah, that's not a quickie, that's a longie in my opinion. But clearly you had a very different sex life than I ever had. And with the 1 hour thing, sometimes, yes, it can be a beautiful thing where it's slow and passionate and eye contact. And other times it's bad in the first 5 minutes, but now you've committed for a full hour. And now it's just teeth clashing and groins, incorrectly misaligning. And so, yeah, it can go either way, really.
No, I really like my metaphor. I'll try to figure it. I'll talk about it tomorrow. If you have a question for Sami, please put it in the comments. I do want to ask you another question. We're talking about comedy, and people do want to do TED Talks. They want to be funny in the boardroom. They want to be able to get their workers to laugh. What would be your comedy tip?
But my first comedy tip would be don't call them workers, because if you don't want a communist uprising with your back up against a wall, maybe don't refer to them as your workers, I think the comedy tip would be don't do the knock-knock jokes. Don't Google online jokes, things like that. Try to find a good joke. Try to come up with something from your life. Make it an anecdote. Everyone's got something in their life that happened to them that's funny. If you can make it an anecdote and it's personal, that's great. And if it goes badly and no one laughs, talk about that. That will turn it around. If no one laughs and you go, well, that was supposed to be the funny portion of this talk, so clearly I am in trouble now. That's going to get a bigger laugh than if you pretend like it went great and power on, because then everyone's going to think that you're completely delusional. That's it. Yeah, we don't want a delusional comedian for 50 minutes. That's not what we want. We've got more than enough of those, I can assure you. No, but if you have a question for Sami, let us know in the comments. And I do have a question for you. Is what's one thing you wish you didn't do in lockdown? Is there a regret? I wish I'd written more. Oh, I didn't do. One thing I didn't do. Yes. I wish I did not procrastinated so much. One of the things that with lockdown I kept doing was, I've been working on a book for a while now, and lockdown was the perfect time to write that book. But every day I'd be like, look, you've been through hell. Your life's fallen apart. We're all in lockdown. Give yourself another day off. All right, have another day off. Okay, fine. Yeah. Have another day off. And the next thing you knew, like 114 days or whatever were over, and we were back into life. And now finding the time to actually write is a lot more difficult. And I look back at that time in lockdown and I go, man, that was a wasted opportunity. I was gifted free time on a platter, and I didn't use it responsibly. So I do regret that. Yeah. I still haven't done my 2019 taxes. Sorry, from the US. Thanks to our community for joining us. We've got Dirk from Germany. Thank you for joining. Wow. We've got from India. We've got Spain. Thank you for joining. Norin from Melbourne. We've got Hawaii is up early. Hawaii, what are you doing? Athens, thanks for joining. London, India. Let's find if there's a Pakistan in the room. Thanks, Norin. Melbourne love. We've got Karen Lee, Melbourne oink oink. I'm loving my oinkers. Thank you for joining. Karen said, I also migrated, so she gets. Oh, there we go. Ali. Ali. From Pakistan. Karachi in the house. That's right. As a fellow Karachiite, hello. We've got Nigeria. Thank you for joining. Carl has gone on a massive tangent on the comments on LinkedIn, so thank you for joining us. And hi, shout out from KL World. Such inspiration to write a book. Thank you for that. Respect to Pakistan. What else do we have here? We've got Kazakhstan. We've definitely gone around the world today. Yeah, you've got an international. You can start a revolution right here. Maybe. Maybe LinkedIn is the place where the next revolution comes from. It has been my revolution. It's a secret revolution that no one knows about. It's a global movement. Karen Lee said yes. He is a very informative in that respect. I think it's about Trevor Noah.
And Karen also said, Hannah Gatsby's so very clever in her delivery of comedy. And I actually watched Douglas last night, and I just loved how she did that mic and walked away, like how she set that all up.
A literal mic drop. The thing that people don't realize when they watch Nanette, everyone talks about Nanette and the ending of Nanette, where she really opens up about this horrific stuff that happened to her. But for me, the thing that I love about Nanette is that whole portion about Picasso, because that's pure, beautiful stand-up. It is well structured, it is tight, it is funny, it's joke after joke, and it's that thing of this is why she can pull off what she does, because she knows what she's doing as a comedian.
That's it, yeah. And Karen also said Douglas is so good. Yes. Karen's also really hard on the comments. Thank you so much for your support, Karen. I'm with you on that, Sam. We're not interested in TV as I refuse to watch live to air TV. There you go.
It's all Australian television is reality TV shows now. It's the worst. It's the laziest TV on earth.
Yeah, maths. Yeah. that's the main one right now. Oh my God, I still have not done my taxes. Naughty.
Taxes. You're from America? Where in America are you from?
No, I'm not from America.
Oh, you're not? Okay. I was wondering.
I'm just having a shit time speaking English. I was born here. I was born in Australia and I can't speak English. I've got a question, which is, where is it? If you met Keanu Reeves, what question would you ask him?
Other than the obvious one, which we would all ask him, is how many centuries have you been alive? And where is that magical pool in which you dip every year so that you don't age? No, I'm a massive Keanu fan in terms of his filmography and everything. And as an actor, I think he doesn't get enough credit. I think I would go with Constantine. Yeah. Are you proud of that movie, or did the backlash against it when it first came out really hurt your feelings about the movie? Because I think the movie holds up great, and I'm a huge fan of the comic book, and I know the comic book's got nothing to do with the movie in terms of the character representation, but yeah, I really like that movie a lot. That's what I'd go with. Wow,
you know more information about Keanu Reeves than I do.
I love Keanu. I'm a big Keanu fan. Yeah. If I drove motorcycles, I would buy one of the ones that he makes, but I don't. I invest all my savings in watches instead. That's right. There's word that he might be doing Constantine too, and they're working on it right now. So yeah.
I feel like he's doing the trilogies to everything.
Yeah. That's right.
It's too hot. He's too hot. Sami, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, of course.
If you are watching, catching this, this will be converted to a podcast as well, but you've got a show that opens this Wednesday in 2 days.
Yes, it's March 24th to April 5th at the Comedy Republic, downstairs at the Comedy Republic, 8 p.m. show. And it's called Cock, and it is, I hope, fun.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And everyone, we will see you. We're taking a break this Friday because I need to recover from my opening night show. So we will see you on the following Monday. Have a great snorting week, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Amy. Howdy.
Bye.
Welcome to the show. My name is Diana Nguyen, and I am the host and creator of the SnortCast. We've been going live twice a week on the SnortCast. I just love live TV, the SnortCast. We've got international. We've got Williamsburg. We've got Ohio, Baltimore, Toronto. We've got Tonga. What? I think people just heard sex in the second point. So we'll flow from.
I'm not ready to talk about it. It is. I just don't. Oh my God.
What the hell happened to your arm?
It's just a fashion accessory. That was fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining the SnortCast, something that I deeply love doing, which is laughing. And I hope to see you on our show every week, keeping it snorting real.